So Veritas and I had the awesome opportunity of having Nikita on the podcast the other day. The full episode is linked down below. It was an amazing time, and we learned a lot of really important things from Nikita. And so instead of just doing a recap of the video, I also want to talk about some of these things we learned and why they're important and how they inform how we look at and interact with Escape from Tarkov. I'm Jessekazam. Welcome back to another Tarkov video. I stream Escape from Tarkov on Twitch. All my links will be down below. I'd love to have you stop by and say hey. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right in. So like we said, it was an incredible time talking with Nikita, and I would highly recommend you checking out the whole video, which is once again linked down below. But we definitely moved through a lot of topics and a lot of really important things. You know, Veritas brought up a point about like how sometimes it can be hard for us as the players to tell if something is game design or if it's a bug, because those lines get blurred on certain minutia things. And he talked about the whole when you can bleed out and get your thorax or head like blacked out to have 0 HP, and if you take damage in your leg, you're not going to die. But if you have 1 HP and then you are a broken leg and you run and you take damage to your head, then you'll die. And that whole complicated scenario and not knowing which part of that is working as intended or not. And we learned that whole experience of blacking out your head or your thorax in any circumstance is a bug, which is definitely brand new information to us. Me and everyone else really thought for the longest time that this is just how that was supposed to work, that if you specifically got a bleed, you can black out your head or your thorax, and that is a bug. And we talked a lot about those types of things, really small bugs that are hard for them to identify because they are working on literally the entire game. I mean, when you think about it, every single game that launches has small bugs like that, no matter how big the QA team is, no matter how big the company is, no matter how big the budget is. So it really brought back to this whole like report anything that you think is weird, report everything. They have really been working on their team and being able to pull stuff from the community and learn and figure out bugs and squash those bugs. And so at the end of the day, reporting anything is always going to be a positive thing, whether you end up finding out that that's not a bug and that's working as intended, or if that's something that needs to be taken care of. They really do look at the community feedback. And we talked a lot about how that feedback needs to be positioned respectfully, or at least without emotion. We talked at length about how hard it is for the team to look through really nasty, disgusting posts about how terrible BSG is as a company and pull the nuggets of information out there, the bugs that they're not aware of. And Nikita was really specific about how it's not about feelings, it's about productivity. It's just really hard to look at something and take someone seriously when they're just crying or whining or yelling about BSG or making false claims or something like that. It's just a lot harder for them to find the nuggets of information. So he was just really clear about the importance of us reporting bugs, reporting things, gathering information, providing that information to BSG. That's really good. Just do it in a way that's easy for them to digest so that they can use that information the best that they can. You know, Nice Guy put it really well in some of his videos, saying that anybody that's just out to bash BSG, he considers a threat to this game because they are just going to bring the overall community and the vibe down, and that is going to make it harder for BSG to do what they do. So whether you love or hate a feature, whether you love or hate the game, if you're going to provide feedback, which you absolutely should, do it in a way that's kind of removed from emotion and just present the information that they need to know. So really important that we are reporting bugs and doing that as often as possible. One of the most important things that we talked about was, what does hardcore mean? And this was actually, I was really excited about this, to be able to sit Nikita down and get his definition of what, you know, hardcore means when they want this game to be hardcore. Veritas brought up kind of the ends of the spectrum where certain things like the landmines and the cultists can feel really hardcore, but they can feel like you can learn from those experiences. The landmines don't kill you immediately, so you can learn where they are, but it's still, if you're not careful, you can absolutely get killed. The cultists, if you're not learning that from every time that you experience them, you're going to just continue to die to them. And then on the other end of the spectrum, sometimes you have some of the crazy AI or Sturman or Raiders that just two-tap you as soon as you pixel peek them, and you have no idea where they came from, and you're just dead, and there's nothing, you know, you could have done everything right on paper, and you don't know what you were supposed to do about that. And Nikita really talking about how hardcore to him is supposed to mean that it's something that you can adapt to, learn from, master, and kind of grow in that experience, that you have the ability to react. But if you're not careful, if you're careless at all, or if you're not learning, you will die, and it will be brutal. And I even kind of pressed him on this and said, I want to make sure I understand what you define as hardcore. And he talked about how, yes, like those things, the landmine, the cultist, they were designed specifically that way so that they were punishing, so that they, kind of came out of nowhere, so that they were a surprise to the player, but so that you can have an opportunity to react, so that you can have a decision to make and then learn from that experience. So we talked a little bit about the AI and how they want to tweak that, but the real thing there is that that's the standard we need to hold the game to. And we need to, once again, report things like when the AI goes crazy, report that and say, hey, there was, nothing I could have done there, or we can gather information about that. Because there is a big part of the community that basically no matter what happens, if a game mechanic is implemented improperly, if something is too hard or way broken or overpowered, people will just come and say, well, it's a hardcore game. Get out of the way if you don't want to play it. It's a hardcore game. It's a hardcore game. And we don't get to define that. Nikita does, the visionary for this game, and that's how he put it. So that's the standard we can hold them to about how hardcore is supposed to be brutal. It is supposed to be punishing, but the punishment is supposed to be punishment from not learning from your mistakes, which means we have the opportunity to learn. And I think that's a really good place to be. And it was really good to hear his thoughts on this subject. Additionally, I was able to ask him about the loot economy in Tarkov and about how, it seems like everybody just kind of goes in, they know where the loot is, they get the loot and they dip. And, I asked what their kind of goal, where are they working towards, and if that has changed at all with the addition of things like the flea market. He was very clear about how he wants it to be a dynamic loot system, but it's not quite that simple. He wants things to make sense. You know what I mean? He doesn't want you to find a graphics card in a med bag and things to get kind of out of control where anything can be anywhere. He wants the dynamic loot to make sense. And additionally, he wants it to be even more kind of complex but cooler than just dynamic loot, where the economy really does change with the game, and how he said that maybe marked rooms would have less loot because we're killing more cultists. If the collective player base has really low standing with Jaeger, he might have less stuff in his Jaeger caches, or he might start throwing out crazier quests. This really not just dynamic loot, but dynamic economy. And I really like a lot of the things they were talking about. Whether I like it or not, if that's how they want to do it, that's exciting. But the important thing, once again, the important thing to learn from this is that we can't use this economy as a reference. So much about how the economy works, how the flea market works, is planned on being changes. So when we provide feedback to BSG, when we are playing the game, we have to remember that we can't use the current economy as a reference. They are working on things in the background. And instead of me wanting them to fix something right now in a system that's already going to be obsolete, I would rather them spend that time creating the tools for the economy that they want to be. So I think that was a really important subject, and how we look at the economy and how we either provide feedback or complain about it is that we have to understand that they're building the tools on the back end to make the economy the way that they want it to be. And as they implement those things, we should absolutely be providing feedback, but we can't use what we have now as a reference. Another really cool thing was I was able to ask Nikita what would his perfect raid be? And his response was actually incredible. And his response was just any raid that tells a story that gets you excited and makes you want to post about it online. And what I found really interesting about that is that he's not saying a perfect raid is playing really slow. He's not saying it's playing fast. He's not saying that it's going for loot or not going for loot, or going for AI or sniping or anything. He's saying every play style is accepted, but the perfect raid is a raid that you get excited about. And I thought that was really cool, and I hope that they continue to, and it looks like they really are continuing to develop the game with that. That's supportive. If you want to play aggressive, if you want to play slow, if you want to play for loot or PvP, if you want to play for quests or not, that as long as all of the kind of pillars of Tarkov are working, the game can support all of those play styles and you can have fun doing them. So I thought that was a really important thing. We talked briefly about immersion, and this was talking about some of the things that we have in the game. And we were talking about VoIP really briefly and talking about how it could be less immersive breaking than wiggling or yelling Dicky Needles or hold your fire. And Nikita seemed surprised by that. And he said he had never considered before unimmersive wiggling, grown men wiggling at each other or yelling Dicky Needles, Dicky Needles, Dicky Needles at each other is. And it really kind of paints a picture where people use immersion as a crutch or like a shield they hide behind. It's going to break my immersion. we kind of have to be a little bit more realistic about when we say that. You know what I mean? Is shooting the battlefield theme up into the sky, letting other scavs know you're at the scav extract, pop-ups in the bottom right corner telling you if your karma is going up or down, or your body lighting up like a Christmas tree in the top left of your screen, showing you exactly where your ouchie is, you know, checking quests for kill confirmations in Married. Did I get the grenade kill? Did I get the shooter born in heaven shot? These are all things that are pretty objectively not immersive in the experience. They're not convincing me that I'm actually a PMC. I'm not saying we should get rid of any of those things, but it's just a reminder that when we use the term immersion, you kind of have to use it all the way and understand that when we talk about that, there's always going to be leniencies to make this video game playable and fun and enjoyable. Lastly, Veritas talked to Nikita about some of the most game-changing features that have come to the game, you know, surgery kits, scav karma, and the flea market / hideout, and how all of those things really marked a new era for the game and completely changed how you interact with the game and how your raids pan out. And asked Nikita, you know, are there any more of these things coming? And he immediately said a lot, and even a lot of things coming this year. You know, Nikita mentioned that inertia is going to completely change how the game is played. VoIP is going to completely change how the game is played. Radio sets, new exfills, new infills, the ability to extract your loot via the car and then continue to beat into the raid, and even more things. So those were little tidbits, little exciting kind of like leaks about some features that are coming. Some we knew about. Some things like infills we're really questioning and aren't sure what that means, but we're excited. But at the end of the day, it's a continued reminder that the game we are playing right now is a temporary one and that we are building towards something different. So we have to be careful about how we play the game that we have now and not get too attached to it, and understand that a lot more of these things are coming. All of those game-changing things that have happened so far, in my opinion, have been a huge benefit to the game, and they have a lot more. And at the end of the day, it's not about whether you or I are excited about a specific feature, but it's if we're going to play this game, it's understanding that we're supporting their vision for the game. They're very responsive to our feedback, so let's try and provide it when we can. And there are some really awesome things coming. So that was basically it. Once again, I definitely recommend that you check out the video. I just thought it was important to talk about some of these things were really important definitions of how this game is played from Nikita himself. And I really wanted to be able to use this as a reference so that as many players as possible can have a better understanding of where the game is, how to move forward, and how to look at the game as we move forward. So I hope this helped. I hope this cleared up some things and got you excited for the game, because it definitely got me excited. And hopefully we can continue to go out there, have fun, and support this awesome game, Escape from Tarkov. Thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to check out this video. If you liked the video, think about dropping a like, commenting down below, or subscribing to the channel for more content like this. I stream Escape from Tarkov on Twitch. All my links will be down below. I'd love to have you stop by and say hey. And if you're looking for people to play Tarkov with, our Discord community is an awesome place to be. That link is down below as well. Thank you again for stopping by, and I will definitely see y'all on the next one.